Hi everyone, Mr. Hawkins with Hawkins Tech, and I've been using iOS 26.5 for the past couple of days, and in this video I'm going to give you the overall experience of iOS 26.5. I'm going to talk about some of the new features, talk about my battery life, battery health, and performance, and also share the Geekbench score during the video as well. Now, as far as some of the new features in iOS 26.5, well, if I go into the lock screen here, press and hold, go to add a new wallpaper here, we have new Pride Luminance wallpapers, and we have 12 of them. And the 12th wallpaper, we get to customize and make it however we'd like, pretty much. So if we want to add different shades to it here, we pretty much can. And we can go ahead and press add wallpaper. And now we have the Pride Luminance wallpaper. We can customize this, so it is really great that Apple is allowing us to customize the Pride wallpaper. Now the next feature is under settings. If we go into our apps, and within our apps here, if we go into messages, under messages, if we go to RCS messaging, this is a new feature in iOS 26.5. We have end-to-end encryption beta. So in iOS 26.5, your messages are going to be end-to-end encrypted. That is a new feature in iOS 26.5. Another feature is if we go into and within Apple Maps, we have suggested places. This is a new feature in iOS 26.5. I don't know if this top menu here is new. I feel like it may have been updated in 26.5. We have suggested places. And also at some point, we're going to start seeing different ads within Apple Maps. Apple is releasing advertisements or ad support within Apple Maps. So that's a new change in iOS 26.5. I believe notification forwarding is also a new update. It might be around for Apple Intelligence devices. That's new in iOS 26.5. Now, as far as my overall experience running iOS 26.5, well, if we go into the app library and we do some scrolling, everything seems to scroll nice and fast. If we go into Apple Podcast here, scrolling is pretty smooth here. As far as my battery life, well, if I go into battery health, and charging, my iPhone 14 is at 85%, and this is a used device, so that obviously it was like that when I got it. But battery life, I will say, is not that great on this particular device. I posted a screenshot on my community post from yesterday. You can see my battery went down to 38% and only using 120% of the battery, though with 5 hours, 41 minutes screen on time, 1 hour, 38 minutes screen off time, and ended the day with 38%. Not great battery life, but that's to be expected as this device does have 85% battery health. But if I go into today, 4 hours, 10 minutes screen on time, 18 minutes screen off time with 97%. That's because probably I charged it. because obviously, realistically, it wouldn't still be there for a couple of hours and use 65% of the battery. Now I'm going to go ahead and take a look at my iPhone. Taking a look at my iPhone 12, if I go into battery health and charging here, I am absolutely amazed at just how long this iPhone has stayed at 80%. My battery health on the iPhone 12 is at 80%, and I feel like in July or August, it's going to be a year. Quite surprising, I feel like it dropped in July. This is very strange and also somewhat surprising. Never have I expected a battery health to stay at a certain number for almost an entire year. But that's the case with my iPhone 12, and it has 80% battery health. But I will be installing iOS 27 beta on this particular device. And I know when I do that, the battery health will drop significantly. Though I don't use this phone as much anymore since I have the iPhone 14, though I use it for early beta testing, so that won't really matter to me. But as far as my battery life, well, again, I haven't really used this device that much. Though I had 16 minutes screen on time, 0 minutes screen off time. Taking a look at yesterday, 1 hour, 30 minutes screen on time, 9 minutes, or 5 minutes rather, of screen off time, and used 50% of the battery. And today I used 14% of the battery. Now, as far as my overall performance, on iOS 26.5 on my iPhone 12 here, an older device, performance is pretty great. Scrolling within the app library, things seems to load up nice and fast here. If you go into Apple Music, everything seems to load up as it should. If you go into podcast, do a little scrolling, things seems to load up here as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the iPad. And finally, taking a look at the iPad, if I go into, and there was lag right there, if I go into settings here, if I go into view battery usage here, I had 2 hours, 6 minutes screen on time, 0 minutes screen off time, used 59% of the battery. Taking a look at yesterday, 41 minutes screen on time, 0 minutes screen off time with 51% of the battery. So again, with this iPad Air 4th generation, I'm not getting great battery life. I don't bring this out, honestly, even though I probably will be bringing it out next month as I'm going on, hopefully, vacation. But I will talk about that on my other channel, Hawkins Tech Vlogs. But battery life is not great on this particular device. Same with the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 14. Obviously, I've had this iPad for 4 years, trying to upgrade, get something newer for the channel. But as of now, this is the iPad Air 4th generation. As far as the overall performance on iPadOS 26.5, well, the Pride wallpaper, where it would crash my iPad or respring, has been fixed with RC2. Now, there was some bugs, honestly, with trying to move around app icons. I faced a couple issues where some icons wouldn't let me put them in specific places as I was sort of changing around my home screen before I made this video. And every time I add widgets and then delete a widget, my home screen is supposed to automatically categorize itself, and it hasn't been doing that. So there has been some weird bugs with that. But performance on the iPad Air 4th generation, performance is pretty great with this particular device. If I go into Apple Podcast, do some scrolling, everything seems to scroll up nice and good. So performance is pretty great with this particular device. Now I'm going to go ahead and run a Geekbench score, and I will share that in the video as well. Geekbench completed, and on my iPhone 14, I scored 2,354 for single core, 5,841 for multi-core. And if I take a look at last week when I ran it, I scored 2344 single core, 5834. Taking a look at it on my iPhone 12, I scored 2107 single core, 4778 for multi-core. And taking a look at it from last week, 2103 single core, 4650 multi-core. And finally, taking a look at it on my iPad, I scored 2120 single core, 5018 for multi-core. And if I take a look at last week, I scored 2120 single core, 4985 for multi-core. As far as what's next from Apple, well, I think the most obvious thing that's going to happen next, if history were to repeat itself, we won't have an update for these next couple weeks. So these next couple weeks, the week of May 18th to the week of June 1st, we're not going to have any updates. So these next 3 weeks or so are going to be pretty quiet from Apple. That is because on June 8th, we're going to get the first developer beta for iOS 27. And it is expected to drop support for the iPhone 11, iPhone 11 Pro, iPhone SE second generation, iPad Pro 2018, and iPad Pro 2020. The devices that are expected to still get support is the iPhone 12, iPhone 12 mini, iPhone 12 Pro, and iPhone 12 Pro Max, and newer. And the iPads are the iPad Air 4th generation and newer, along with the iPad Pro M1 or newer. But Apple could stick around the 2020 iPad Pro, even though it has the same chip as the 2018 model, the A12Z, while the 2018 has the A12X. We could see Apple still keep the iPad Pro from 2018 or 2020 rather around, though we don't know this 100%. As of now, I'm assuming M1 or newer iPad Pro. Apple, though, could keep the 8th gen iPad around potentially since it came out in 2020, or Apple could drop that one also. But since it came out along with the iPad Air from 2020, then Apple could keep it around again. We don't know this 100%. We're going to get iOS 27, iPad OS 27, Mac OS 27. I have no clue what they're calling it. It's always a surprise every year. Last year it was called Tahoe, so I don't know what Apple's calling it this year. WatchOS 27, VisionOS 27, tvOS 27. We're going to get quite a lot this year from Apple. And iOS 27 is rumored to focus on stability, and hopefully it brings a new Siri app. I have tweaked around some of my concepts I have for what the app could look like, what the widget maybe could look like, and also the interface of the app. Now, again, this could be strange as to what we could see, but I'm hoping that we do get the Siri app in iOS 27. Not only am I hoping we get that, and I'm hoping we get it for all devices, but I'm hoping Apple cleans up the settings app. Where if you go into podcasts and you want to check podcast settings, or you go into Apple Music and you want to check music settings, or say if you go into the App Store and you want to check the settings for that. I'm hoping that in iOS 27, Apple cleans up the settings menu and move each individual app settings for any Apple app, whether that's podcast, App Store, Apple Music, any app, move the settings for that specific app within the app itself, so that settings could be a lot more organized, and the only things you can have is airplane mode, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cellular, all of the accessibility features. different features to control brightness, home screen layouts, and so much and much more. But instead of having all of their apps laid out within settings, each individual app would have its own settings menu. Rather than having to scroll into settings, scroll to find the specific app, and while there is a shortcut to do that, a lot of people don't have the shortcut or don't know where to find it. So it would be pretty nice to have each individual app from Apple, even third-party apps, have their own settings. That's something that I hope we see in iOS 27. And I will be beta testing iOS 27 on my iPhone 12. However, I will not be putting it on the iPhone 14 or my 2020 iPad Air. But there is a lot we are expected to get with iOS 27. Stability is the main focus, but I'm hoping we get some under the hood improvements. I'm hoping we get the iOS 15 update to iOS 14. iOS 15 did not bring a ton of features when it first came out. Share Play for FaceTime, a redesign to Safari, updated widgets, not a ton of features, but it brought features, enough features worth a video. So hopefully iOS 27 delivers on the same promise. Until we get iOS 27, we're not going to have any updates if history were to repeat itself for the last 2 years. iOS 26.6 will be the next update, but usually Apple likes to wait till after iOS 27. At least that's what they did in 2024 and 2025. However, if Apple were to take a step back to 2023 and earlier, then we could see iOS 26.6 the week of May 18th. We just don't know at this point, though if it's something that I'm hoping Apple does, is not repeat last year. Last year, iOS 18.5, we had from May all the way to the end of July. I'm hoping at least we get 1 point update in between that, like iOS 26.5.1. As last year, it did get quite boring covering iOS 18.5 for the 2 months that we've had it. So hopefully we get an update in between before the release of iOS 27. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Mr. Hawkins with Hawkins Tech, and I will see you guys in the next video.